Welcome and thank you for joining us today for Tech Horizons, unveiling strategic trends in global finance, banking, and insurance. IT Executive Survey 2023. My name is Raleigh Gould, and I'll be moderating today's event. Our featured speakers are Dan Twing, President and COO at Enterprise Management Associates, and Tiago da Costa, Senior Director of Platform Pre-Sales at FICO. Dan joined EMA in 2005 and has over 25 years of experience in information systems, software development, and technology outsourcing. Dan focuses on all aspects of intelligent and automated management of IT. Tiago has over a decade of experience with AI decisioning platforms and has been with FICO for over 16 years across a broad range of roles, from business rules consulting to solution architecture. In this time, he has amassed broad and diversified experience working globally with financial services and insurance institutions on their transformation journeys. And before I hand things over to today's featured speakers, I wanted the audience to know that Dan and Tiago will answer your questions at the conclusion of today's event. Feel free to log them anytime, though, using the Q&A functionality. Also, today's event is being recorded, and you will receive a follow-up email from EMA with resources from today's event. So I hope you will check that email out. And now I'd like to go ahead and turn things over to our first featured speaker, Dan Twing. Dan?
Thank you, Raleigh. Well, we did this survey in 2023 with the folks from FICO to look at a lot of the issues in and around accelerating digital innovation and use of AI and improving data driven experiences. And so, you know, when we first look at accelerating the digital innovation, this digital transformation concept is something that has been talked about now for well over a decade. And it's, you know, gone through several iterations, and it's actually still well underway for most organizations. I did a different piece of research earlier this year, and, you know, it's only about 25 to 30% of organizations that are really mature with their digital transformation, and the bulk of the market is still well underway, but it has a lot of ground yet to cover. So what does it mean to do this digital transformation? It really starts with a digital first vision of customer experiences, and it really crosses all areas of the business. Really is a fundamental change to how we operate and maximize value to customers. And that can cross all industries. Of course, we'll be talking today about banking and insurance primarily, but this digital transformation, of course, doesn't live within a single industry, although the financial industry does tend to be an earlier adopter and a bit ahead of some of the other industries in other research that I've done. Digital transformation can really unify massive amounts of heterogeneous customer data and tailor it into these individualized or personalized treatments if it's done well. It really increases customer satisfaction and loyalty and retention to ultimately maximize this customer experience. It's really, you know, the rapid innovation and the disruption from fast-moving fintechs, neobanks, and other insurtechs are adding an urgency to this for a lot of financial institutions. But there's also this concept of modernization efforts because, you know, the first round of digital transformation really was bolting things onto the infrastructure. But we've really reached a point where the core infrastructure itself, the very first things that were automated in any industry and you know, are now on such legacy infrastructure that to go further with digital transformation, a lot of organizations are having to step back and really look at modernizing that core infrastructure to take the next steps forward. So the role of these technology leaders in accelerating this, you really start with a heightened customer expectation of always on, highly personalized experiences. You know, the marketplace has come to expect certain things from the organizations they interact with and do business with. And so that customer expectation has certainly risen significantly. And it really requires a technology ecosystem that's highly stable, secure, and resilient. But you also have to be flexible and adapt quickly. Solutions that take advantage of the latest advancements in, say, AI and real-time decision intelligence are important, and we've seen a lot of advancements in the past year in this area. But again, the ability to get all the data where it needs to be is really hindered by a lot of legacy infrastructure. Technology executives are developing these deeper partnerships with their business peers, because what's happening is, IT used to sort of help out where it could, but the business pretty much did what it did, and IT, stood in the background and automated what it could. But, the shift here today, most businesses are really a digital business first. And if you don't think that way, you don't really understand all of what might be possible. So this shift to AI is going to require a lot more from the infrastructure to feed it the data that's required. Key structural and architectural decisions, though, take years to implement, and if you get it wrong, you really set yourself in a bad state. Before we go into some of the results from the survey, let me quickly talk about who took the survey. So we had 206 respondents in our 226 respondents in total. That was about 7% from the insurance industry. That's the gray box on the pie chart there on the right. Finance and banking were almost equally split, 46-47%. Company sizes here, we had kind of a floor that we were looking for, on up to companies of very large numbers of employees. So the floor was 5,000 to 10,000 employees, and then up from there. In which country you're located, we did a global review here. So for North America, that consisted of Canada and the US. We did some Central and South America, by including Brazil and Mexico. In Europe, we looked at the UK, Germany, and South Africa for the EMEA region. And then the APAC, we focused on the Philippines, India, Indonesia, and Thailand. So this was a global survey. And we were really looking to IT leaders and those kinds of job codes. So the first area that we explored was, how are IT leaders measured? We asked the participants of the survey, as a technology leader, rank in order the most important measures that demonstrate your positive impact to the business. And they were allowed to only select 3 items and put those in their top 3. You can see that by a fairly significant margin. I mean, it's only a couple percentage points here, but it stands out. Security and regulatory compliance made the top of that list. And personally, I have done a lot of work in the banking and finance industry earlier in my career. I'm much more broader to IT management today, but that's not a surprise to anyone who's worked around banking that the security and compliance would top the list. But what's great is right behind that, customer experience and satisfaction. They're looking at that metric, and kind of what I saw when I looked at this list of results was, it's sort of a mix of more traditional IT metrics, but you see more business metrics getting stirred into the pot here. So of course, system availability and downtime is important to all IT leaders, but it's at the bottom of this list, because that's sort of table stakes, right? And of course, security and compliance affects everybody. But when you look across here, speed to deliver stakeholder requirements, which would be both employees, trading partners, and customers, customer satisfaction, revenue. You see some things that are really more business drivers, which is great, because pulling the business and the IT folks closer together is what's necessary to make this major transition. Tiago, does that fit with what you see in the marketplace as you interact with prospects and clients?
Yes, Dan. So we typically have been seeing IT getting a greater stake, per se, in the broader business outcome. So more and more, we used to see IT as a siloed, and their leaders as like a siloed for the overall business. Now, more and more, we even see some companies and institutions where they have a separate group, per se, that is the business IT. So it's a group within business and IT that actually has to work between those words. But more and more IT is really getting into the weeds per se of business. And within those points, it's really interesting to see. Of course, we're talking about the specific industry in here, insurance, financial, all of that. So it's not a surprise that we see security and compliance as a number one per se. Yes, we were expecting something like that, but it's really the one thing that is really interesting to me is the number two. So when you start adding the customer experience, the customer journey, and when we say that regarding an IT standpoint, not only external per se customers, but internal as well. So it's really important to see that they are trying to get the overall experience better per se. And more when you see IT trying to impact the customer experience, what you get is that when they can deliver on the stakeholders' requirements, you see their business peers remain very agile and deliver amazing customer experiences per se within the products and services that they are responsible for. So it's really a combined effort to really help with this increase of the customer experience. More and more customers and prospects around the globe, their one main mantra, I would say, it's really about the customer experience. So it's fantastic to see those numbers and how they balance within each other, I would say.
Yeah, and you know that customer experience. I know in my own life, you know, I really do judge a company by my touch points digitally. You know, I don't. It's hard not to. Amazon pulled us in and taught us new ways of doing retail. You know, I personally was doing home banking things. I brought some of the first banks onto the internet, but back in the 90s. But this thing is, the expectation of customers is so high, and it doesn't take much to let them down if they're used to certain experiences. It really does become a factor. You know, they expect things to just work a certain way. Everyone else can do it. Why can't this company? And if that's
exactly,
if my bank's not giving me what I need, it's easy to move.
Exactly. So it's so easy. I was actually gonna touch on that. So it's so easy if you're not satisfied. I mean, in the past, if you were not satisfied, oh, you know what? But it's going to be so troublesome for me to actually go and move. Right now, if you get whatever your phone with just a couple of clicks, the whole digital experience per se, it's so quick. It has to be right now. It's so momentaneous that you can very easily just go and select another one. So it's really amazing to see. And it, of course, connects to other of those aspects like speed to deliver. So yes, if the customer experience from one customer is not good, but you know what? The other speed to deliver is not so great. So you're going to end up in a situation that is not so good. But I mean, they all relate to each other, but it's really fantastic to see how customer experience, it has really evolved. And I think we all learn from this digital transformation that we all end up going through per se. And how quick and fantastic, I would say, you can actually switch if your experience, if you're not happy with what you got. Let me put it like that.
Right. And what's interesting is, speed to deliver new requirements really ties into that customer satisfaction thing, right? Because, I can be highly satisfied with everything you're delivering to me today, and tomorrow, where's the new thing, right? I mean,
yes.
And so, those two are actually quite linked, I think, because folks want to see that progression.
Yep. And that's why a platform story is really fantastic.
Right. Because, platform does really relate to speed, and we're going to hit that a bit later. But yeah, that's kind of also why I focused on that one. So as executives are facing, making these changes and being measured in these ways, what are their top priorities? We asked the question, rank in order the top strategic technology related priorities for your department. Again, they were allowed to pick the top three. And then we're showing the top 6 or 7 here from that list. Again, for me, the top one was in no way a surprise. Modernizing legacy applications has become a hot topic in the last 18 to 24 months. I've seen it shift in other areas that I do research in as well. It's like we just reached this point where we've done all of the retrofitting and bolting on we can do, and it really to step everything up. And it ties right back to that customer experience, to step everything up, to deliver things in consistently in a timely fashion. We've reached a point where those core legacy systems have got to change with the rest of this. You know, that has taken a lot of different forms, moving mainframe stuff into the cloud, re-engineering mainframe stuff in place. There's a lot of energy there that is sort of stacked up ahead of what I see as a whole lot of new innovations that are going to come right behind it. And it does dovetail with a lot of the AI stuff, because if you're going to train your own models and things, you've got to have the right data, and you have to have it in a timely fashion so you can track how those models are trending. And it's highly related to the next one on the list. So the second priority then is improved decision automation across business processes. Everybody talks about being data driven, but you know, it's a nice thing to say, it's a nice thing to measure people on, but if you don't give them the tools and you don't give them the access, you don't really achieve that. And as soon as you have the ability to make database decisioning, the very next thing you want is to speed it up. And that's where the automation comes in. Yeah. So, and then the third priority here, reduce reliance on IT staff. This gets really back to that speed, right? People don't want to wait 3 months for IT to deliver it, or wait 9 months for their project to get prioritized so that it can be delivered 3 months later. And now I'm waiting a year, right? The idea of trying to push more self-service and even allowing folks to define some basic automations on their own, it all gets back to speed and experience. So, and then this transition to a composable architectures is another one that it relates back to speed again. And we actually asked, how sophisticated is your organization's approach to composability? Which, for those of you, if you're not familiar with the term, it's the ability to reuse existing capabilities to address new use cases. And what we saw here is 4%, you know, we're not really interested in that. You know, that's actually 3-4% often on these major trends. We see a group about that size who are just going to sit on the sidelines. Everybody else is in some phase of early adoption to early majority to get here. You know, we don't have a lot that are all the way there. You look all the way on the other end of this chart to the right side, 14% are sophisticated. We have all of the standardized capabilities we need. So, you know, the rest of the market is somewhere in the middle there. From we're aspiring to that, we're starting to investigate, we're early, we have a few capabilities to, we're advancing. That's where the bulk of that market is. And this is another area I think that's gonna really affect, along with the modernization, the speed of the next couple rounds of innovation. So Tiago, why don't you talk a little bit about how much composability plays into what you guys focus on with your platform, and how you see you know, the market adapting to these concepts.
Absolutely, Dan. So it's really interesting, the term itself, composability, as you were going through. So really reuse assets that you already have for other specific use cases, for other specific, let's translate to business problem. What is the actual business problem that I'm trying to solve with existing capabilities? So FICO came up with what we call a platform that address what we call decision intelligence. So how can you operationalize AI, but how can you really help all those different points that we had previously, including the customer experience that we were discussing, but how we can modernize legacy systems, how we can really use AI per se. So FICO came up with this platform that it's really meant towards what you were mentioning about composability. So you have the assets, you have the technology. So you have, let's say, whatever it's hard for you to get, you already have, because you get one platform. And then you can start solving a specific problem. You can start solving whatever business problem that you need. But we're seeing more and more customers that whenever we get there, whenever we land with the platform, we are expanding. So they are themselves, oh, you know what, I can actually use this very same capability to compose. Of course, sometimes they don't use the compose word, but to really create other solutions on top of the same platform. So really shying away from that one-point solution, one-point tool that they actually have for a platform concept and usage per se. So how can I really use AI? How can I really connect, as you were just going through? So how can I use more and more data without needing to think, oh, am I creating a data warehouse? Am I creating a database for that? So you know what? How can I leverage that data? How can I use and extract the value of that data? So how can I use multiple different assets that you get from a platform that FICO has to address different use cases? I have worked with a customer that they started, oh, you know what? We do have two specific business problems that we want to address. It was a banking with some originations use case that they had at the time. You know what? We do have those two different use cases. We started talking to them. We started showing, of course, the platform and discussing all of those different things. The bank themselves identified, whenever we were still discussing with them, 19 different other use cases that they wanted to use the very same platform, and including analytics, including decision rules, AI, all of that. As of right now, they are more in, I think they do have like 30 plus more use cases that they are using. So they really stopped thinking like only, oh, let me use this solution or this tool per se for originations. They think, oh, you know what? I can use the very same rules, the very same strategies with the very same model capability. So they started composing their own solutions, leveraging the same foundation, leveraging the same platform. So they started thinking about composability themselves. So it's nice, it's interesting to look at those numbers in here. You can see that only 4% have not really thought or really not interested in composability, where most of the others are at least starting to think, you know what if I use this very same capability? Because you get the benefit of having something that is already integrated, so it works together as well with IT, with the integrations, with all of those technical artifacts that it has, but it's really driving, it's really empowering business to apply what we call decision intelligence per se.
Yeah, I mean, this is a concept that goes beyond data-driven or AI. It's all across IT, but you've done a great job of showing exactly how it can impact these areas. And what's interesting is the more you think like this, it starts to cross different silos within the organization. And it can really, that kind of thinking can really help speed things along.
And it really helps. So yeah, my bad, Dan. And it really helps IT per se, because again, you already have the capabilities in there. You already have what you need. So it's not that you need to get something new. So IT already knows how to work with it. So while we put the power per se in the hands of business, because we are helping business to come up with their goals per se, IT is a very strong part of the mix per se. So, and it only with this composability perspective, it only helps IT as well, because everything is already in there, everything is already in place. They already know how to work with it. It's just a matter of, yeah, let's actually get really quick and as you said, speed to market to release new products, new strategies, AI, and all of that.
Absolutely. So we talked. We also explored some of the top IT pain points. We asked that question a couple of different ways. The first was, data integration across business functions is a critical challenge in your organization. And they were asked to, it's a 5-point scale sort of deal. 81% agreed or strongly agreed that data integration across business functions is a major challenge. We only had 4% who disagreed. They maybe don't have the need, or they figured out how to solve it. But for most organizations, this is one of the top pain points. Also, when considering new technology products, your organization is concerned about proliferation of disparate solutions. And this was a bit of a surprise to me that it was actually higher than those who felt like integration was critical. Was that we have 84% who agreed or strongly agreed that proliferation of disparate solutions is a concern when considering new solutions. And this, to me, even feeds back to composability a bit, because every piece of software you go in, we do a lot of consulting with organizations, and the early going is, let's do a tools inventory. And what you find is they'll have 3 to 4 times as many things as they really need to run stuff. And some of it's just shelfware, some of it's used by one little group, and it's just not efficient at all. And so this is the concept of do you bring all these point solutions to bear, but are you really getting the best value out of them? And so for me, this was a pretty major data point. And then the broader question here of rank in order the biggest pain points for your organization. And here again, we were looking at their top 3. And what came right to the top of the list was technology integration related challenge between data analytics and AI, which again, trying to get the data in the right place at the right time. And, and then even when you have the big database, do all of your analytics tools fit with it well? I mean, there's a lot to getting all this stuff to line up. The second, just a step behind, was cyber and information security related challenges. And actually, I'm actually surprised security doesn't make the top of the list on here, but this focus on data and AI and machine learning has pushed those challenges even above security, which is, especially with this group, remember, we're only talking here to insurance, banking, and finance people. So, for that group to put data integration above security really says something to me. Rigidity and inflexibility of legacy technologies is down there. I kind of jumped over data integration related challenges because to me that one is almost somewhat overlapping with the first, but then you get to this inflexibility of the legacy technologies. This is really the counterpart to modernizing that we saw earlier on the list, right? Because again, we've done an awful lot to surround these legacy technologies with, web-based this and that, mobile app this and that. But at the end of the day, to really tie all this together, you can't just have all these piece parts. You've got to re-engineer the entire system. And that's kind of what most of the IT industry is realizing now as we move to this next level. And you can see some of the others that were listed there. We also asked kind of a more open-ended question. If you could change one thing about your organization's technology strategy, what would it be? Now, I've shared here on the screen some of the open-ended comments that we got. You can read those, but I'd like to ask Tio, what do you hear from the market? Do these pain points line up? And if you want, I can jump back if you want to comment on the earlier slide, but what do you hear from the market? What do folks find frustrating about their IT organization that's getting in the way of achieving all of this?
Yes. So first is that those comments definitely fit with what I've been hearing in the field per se with customers and prospects. They are more and more totally bought into a platform approach, as you can see within those comments per se. For a lot of those customers and prospects, it's not only about early wins, but it's also about how they can apply the technology. So how you can compose multiple different solutions for multiple different problems per se. They start with one, as I just said. So they typically start with one use case, and more you get to see they're adding more business and other lines of business per se, and other portfolios within the same platform with the same overall solution that they actually get. And one of the things that it's really important here in all of those points that you had as well, Dan, it's as I said, so you get to multiple different tools that you said, and some of like a shelfware, and some are used only within a couple of different users per se. Maintainability is really important as well. So it's not easy to maintain those cutting edge technologies, especially if you're talking about AI technology. So business sometimes really needs to prove the real value that they actually get, and not only what they get to drive outcomes, but doing safer and in a more responsible way when talking about AI, especially in those very highly regulated environments per se. So we're seeing big banks putting a lot more focus on how they can operationalize AI versus exploration. So how you can really make that safe and responsible per se, to get from going to labs whenever you're with all those analysts and all those data science, how you move from that into really production. So the burden of really operationalizing the AI is one of the pain points that we get to see as well. And then when you get to really operationalize that, how you then combine, how you then compose with your current decision systems as well. So really leveraging one single platform to use and to connect to multiple disparate sources of data, which is one key point that we saw as well. So how we can actually use multiple different data, because we know customers and prospects, of course, have multiple different disparate sources of data together where they actually want to use in real time, batch, streaming. So how you can have one single platform to work with all those multiple channels of data and operationalize AI and use to compose with multiple decision systems as well. And the other comment that I would like to make on those points as well, and those specific challenges that we see here, is how you can really move, per se, from a discussion from, you know what, I do have a plan to do this, to really get into a live running capability or live running system with something like a platform, per se. So more and more, we are listening customer and prospects telling us that, you know what, yeah, we got this idea, we think this is fantastic, but whenever we get to implementation, it's often a burden. So those solutions are very complex. Sometimes it does offer a lot of claims on performance, and we get to use this specific platform. So more and more, we have been listening customers and prospects that they are trying to get to this state of the art, per se, with a platform, but they're failing with the implementation. So implementation is often a real problem, per se. And we even have some customers that told us, hey, you know what, yeah, we decided to go with this other vendor because of this, whatever other opportunity that they had at the time. They came back to us and say, hey, you know what, yes, your platform is absolutely fantastic, but we had this relationship, so we decided to go with it. But you know what, implementation failed. So can we go back? And then we get engaged again with them. We, of course, we use the platform, and we really, from, I would say, we do have cases that months they had something live with AI decisioning and all of that. So it is a matter of as well, not only trusting and being a partner of the vendor. So it's not only the tool itself, it's not only the platform or the capability, but how you have the vendor as a trusted advisor, per se, that can help you not only with the technology, with all of that, but really to transform your journey to get that live into production, per se.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in a lot of the research that we do in different categories of software, vendor selection often floats to the top, right? It's like how much support you're going to get, how well thought out it is, how well it fits with the other things you have, implemented. It can really make a difference in the outcomes.
Yep.
So then we move to, technology buying decisions. How are these organizations approaching, the things that they're going to need to add to move forward and achieve some of the things we've been talking about? We asked this question, rank in order the primary reasons your organization selected the technology solutions currently in use. Again, we were looking for their top three. This was, again, kind of not a surprise. Scalability, performance, multiple cloud environments, and ease of management making the top of the list there. And then if you look a little deeper, meet security and data privacy standards. Here we have the relationship with the vendor, the very thing we were just talking about. It's right there, in the top end of this list. IT leaders really needing to balance the short-term benefits and the long-term strategic concerns. It's but here these are really pretty straightforward kinds of priorities from what I expected to see. Tiago, does this kind of fit? I mean, when he gets to the end of the day, you really do go back to the, does it run where I need it to run as fast as I need it to run, and how hard is it to keep it running?
Yeah, Dan. So we tend to think that IT is on a trend away from one single build purpose solution into a more scalable, flexible, easy to manage platform, per se. But as we know, all platforms aren't created equal, so they are not equally per se. So this only shows up towards the middle of the results here. But vendor relationships and vendor trust is key. So look for platform vendors that have a proven history of delivering, as FICO has. I think it's key, you know, to really understand, again, not only the technology, but can you really make it real? Can you really deliver that? So some solutions will require, of course, vendor involvement down the road for making changes or extending functionality. But you know what, the FICO platform is really meant to be, again, scalable, flexible, and really create an environment that IT will be part of the play, yes, but it's really towards to empower business to make the decisions without the whole IT overhead. So it's really to help IT and business by putting the power in the hands of business, but as well to say, hey, IT, you know what? We already have integrated this. We already have those sources of data connected. So one single platform to really address both sides of the coin, per se.
Right, right. And actually we drilled into that concept a bit more and said, would you prefer a unified enterprise platform or independent standalone applications for your organization's decision intelligence needs? So, you know, this platform versus independent solutions is a concept that, you know, crosses IT decisions. I mean, in lots of categories of software, we were very specifically here putting their attention to decision intelligence systems. And you can see that more than 50%, you know, a slight majority, 52% prefer or strongly prefer a unified enterprise platform. Another 37% don't start with a preference. They're gonna go into their buying decision and they're gonna look at those other issues we talked about: scalability, performance, vendor relationship. They're not predisposed. They'll make that call on the margin. I think, you know, for a lot of folks though, what it takes to meet all of those business requirements, a large part of that 37% will likely fall in the direction of enterprise platform when they balance all those other needs. And then for 11%, they prefer or strongly prefer independent standalone applications. When I've looked at data like this before in other research and here as well, when you look at organization size, I've noticed that has a lot to do with this. So the smaller organizations and the very large organizations are the ones who tend to go platform. I often find it's the ones with enough scale to do the custom work, but not being so bureaucratic and large, are the ones that tend to try to stitch together multiple point solutions. But it takes a lot more energy and attention to achieve that.
Yep.
The big organizations tend to have too much bureaucracy and too many silos, and the little guys don't have the resources. So we didn't break that data out here, but in my experience, the preference for platform, you know, it is a little stronger even than what this data says once that group in the middle goes through all of those other trade-offs and choices. But it was really somewhat surprising to me to see 52% right out of the gate go, I bought enough technology to know I'm going to buy something that's already self-contained, right? Because a lot of those integration challenges that people talk about are solved for you in some way. I mean, you still have to get it out of the source systems. What do you think of the results here, Tiago? And is this a major discussion point as you're engaging folks in the market?
Yes, absolutely, Dan. So we typically see customers considering a lot of different factors per se to that whenever they think of, okay, so should I still be using a point solution or independent standalone application per se versus a unified platform? So we typically see a lot of points that they actually raise for those type of decisions that they actually need to take. So time to market, speed, agility, scalability. So some of those things we have been discussing before, but it's really the maintainability as well, cloud adoption as well, to really legacy, to really modernize their legacy systems per se. And one thing that's really a trend per se that I've been listening more and more within customers and prospects as well, is really show me some proof points. So do you really have cases that some other, of course, you do not need to open names and all that, but do you see other institutions that are trying to do the very same thing that we are right now? So do you really have like proof points that can show you the benefits of having a unified platform approach versus a standalone solution? So absolutely, more and more we've been listening. And the beauty of a platform is that you do not need to rip and replace per se existing systems. So this is really important when we say to modernize legacy systems. It's not that you need to rip and replace it is already in there. So you can start with one use case, as I did mention that specific institution that I worked with. So they started with some use cases. They started adding more and more. They even themselves realized that they wanted the platform for more. But it's really, oh, can you plug this platform with this specific system that I have in here for this use case? So absolutely. So how you can really connect, because by not ripping and replace, you're gonna have a big agility in time to market, and you're gonna be able to really quickly release new products and use new capabilities. Like, can you really use AI together with my really legacy mainframe thing that I have in here? Absolutely, yes, you can. So how you can really use that to tell the story of the platform, of a unified platform, versus just, yeah, you can really connect in here, but really have all those different points per se. So customers are really done with, yeah, you know what, I really need a decision engine, or I need to really deploy my models. I need a platform that I can do a whole lot of things, including data, which is a very important point, as we saw in some of those trends in the previous slide, because of course we more and more get exposed to data, but what is really the value that I can get from data? This is what customers have been asking. So it's not only using a lot of data, but what is the real value that I'm extracting from all the data that I have access to? And how can I really to connect all of those different capabilities? So how can I compose a solution that we use this data and address all of those different problems that I have, together with connecting with my current legacy system? So this is typically the trends that we listen when should I be going with this siloed or standalone solution versus should I be going to a platform approach per se?
So we then kind of moved our thinking to, what does it take to enable the data-driven enterprise? So we asked a bit about capability investments and where investment in technology was being focused. The red here is no near-term plans to invest. The green is plans to invest in the next 24 months. And the blue is where they're currently and actively investing. And I've sorted this data by, those who are currently investing. This one was a little bit interesting for me because, in some ways it depended on where organizations decided to start. None of the things on this list are unimportant, as you can see. I suppose the mathematical optimization, 6% is the only ones with no near-term plans, but for the most part, you've got well over 90%. They're either working on it now or they're going to be working on it next year. And every organization is going to choose where to start these different things. But it's not really a surprise that data analytics and AI governance is got the most active and current investment, and intelligent decisioning is just a step behind that. And then personalized and customer analytics behind that. I think bringing it to the employees first in many cases affects the bottom line of the business, but then you get back to customer satisfaction. They want the same kind of capabilities. So I think these priorities to me made a lot of sense. And then we also asked, what's the level of adoption in your organization for the following capabilities? And here the red is no one's using it. The yellow, we're piloting it. The green, it's expanding. Blue, it's becoming standard. And by the purple is it's mature. And so you can see that, even a fair number of organizations already have data analytics and AI governance in a mature state, with a big group coming right behind that. And yet decisioning, intelligent decision automation lags that a bit. And then we get to the customer personalization. Again, there's quite a few that are beginning it. The maturity there is not quite as significant. But all of these things kind of interrelate to each other. I mean, at some point, you need many of these piece parts to come together. So that's sort of a state of where they're at. And then we asked, what's impeding your organization's ability to take action on data-derived business insights? Data availability, right at the top of the list. You'd say, well, it's your environment. Why can't you get the data where you need to get it? If you've never worked in banking, you don't understand, banking technology. You really don't understand how important data is, how much of it there is, and how many different places it comes from. In a given day, I did a case study recently in another topic area with a big bank that, they were struggling to get their liquidity report out. It was, some days it was up to 6 hours late. I mean, you just can't have that. When you dig behind that one little problem, they had 20 different major sources of data and thousands of little jobs every night to collect that. And that was one set of data. I mean, data is everywhere, and it is difficult to get where you need it, when you need to get it, in the format you need to use it. So that being at the top of the list made a lot of sense to me. Making data work in production environments, next on the list. It's one thing to have it and have access to it, but if it's not in the format you need, that's not very helpful. And then lack of decisive executive support. This is the first time we've kind of seen this pop up in here, but more often than not, in my experience, a lot of these things, the technology choice is important, the vendor relationship and the vendor support, very important. But the technologies itself can often be pretty ubiquitous. They all have their advantages and disadvantages, but the big thing is the people and the organization can get in the way of the implementation almost more than your technology choices. And so this hasn't popped up a lot in this survey, but also IT staffing limitations. So Tiago, looking at these results and the couple of other slides we talked about investments, what do you see happening in the market? And maybe a more direct question, do you see that a platform really helps with the biggest problem on this list, which is data availability?
Absolutely, Dan. So the platform really helps with data availability. And as I've said a couple of times in here in this webinar, so it's not only really making the data available as well, but really how can you extract the real value of data per se? So how can you really use the data to apply decision intelligence per se, and to, of course, apply the proper decisions that you want within that specific data. So how you really operationalize AI, but by using data. So how you really, I like to say, how you really operationalize data per se, because we know at the end, it's not only just about investing in standalone technologies or a specific AI point, a solution. So how really leverage a platform that you can use the data, that you can, of course, connect the data as well, but connect the platform to your existing systems per se, to your existing legacy systems, to extend their usefulness. So really take the advantage, as you said. So it's really hard within banking to not think about data. So how you can extract and use the data from those systems as well. So how take the advantage of having a powerful platform and combine those capabilities to augment and transmit intelligence across all the enterprise per se. So a platform is really the place where decisions are made and strategies come to life per se, but really where the data and AI insights are operationalized. So really how you use all the data and you connect to all the data. And again, the really extract the value, because it doesn't matter if you have a data lake that you can really not use and understand what's the data. So it doesn't matter, you're just pushing a lot of data in there. At the end, you just end up with tons of metadata and making no real usage, no real word usage of the data that you get in there per se.
Yes. So, try to summarize what we found here, how banking, finance, and insurance institutions can better position themselves to succeed as you're kind of looking forward. Some of the thoughts that we took away from this, and then we'll get into the Q&A, unifying and mobilizing the organization around a common interoperable platform. There's a lot of value in that, combining IT leadership and business users' domain expertise, that coming together, really understanding that, IT is not just a support organization. every business these days is an IT business at some level. And bringing those two together, I think, is really important. Broadly deploying and leveraging data and other knowledge assets at every decision point is a key thing. And having that platform to help you achieve that ubiquitous use of data, and then using these AI-powered capabilities such as mathematical optimization to fine-tune strategies, and then deliver that more seamless, hyper-personalized customer experience at scale. I mean, always focused on that customer experience, I think is key. With that, we're going to get into some Q&A, and I'll turn it back to Raleigh to field the questions.
Great. Thank you, Dan. Before we jump into the questions, I wanted to invite the audience to learn more about FICO. Visit this URL. I will also include this in the follow-up email. Starting with you, Tiago, what are some best practices IT teams can adopt when implementing and delivering platform solutions?
Yeah, so typically they look at security, infrastructure, governance. So some of those ease of integration as well. So what are the capabilities that a platform can really help with IT? So if I get to adopt this unified enterprise platform, what are the benefits that I'm going to get? So of course, me as my IT head, what is really the value that I'm going to get in here, and what are really the nice things of having a platform, which connects to what we were discussing as well regarding composability per se. So, okay, if I have all of that in here that is secure, that I get all this infrastructure, that I have someone looking at that and maintaining as well, which is really important. So all the governance, which is reliable, that offers all this ease of integration for me, fantastic. But what is going to offer for my business stakeholders, my business peers, to actually help them address their problems as well? So we typically see IT, of course, looking at those points of, okay, this is a fantastic set of capabilities or tools for IT that I have in here, but what is the real value that as well it will offer for my counterparts per se? So, and the one thing that I think Dan brought in here in some of his points, that more and more IT is looking as well, is the whole vendor relationship per se. So is this something that has been proved enough? Is this something that is reliable enough that we have others that are using and adopting as well? So these are some of the trends that I have been seeing with IT while implementing and as well thinking of those and platform solutions that they actually get.
Great insights. Thank you, Tiago. Dan, jumping over to you, how can banks move faster toward automated decisioning while dealing with many legacy systems?
Well, I think, we've kind of hit that a few times here, but for me, this build versus buy, this platform versus, I mean, not that you would build everything, but, if you look at 6-point solutions or you look at a platform, one of the advantages to me, and in some ways platform, it has some similar characteristics to, looking at a SaaS-based application. A lot of decisions have been made for you. I mean, when you start one of these projects from the beginning, there's so many choices that have to be made. And not every choice that was made in a platform may be the choice you would have made, but the reason it gets you there quicker and it can be more stable, and while you're learning and trying to figure things out, you can always layer in some customizations down the road. But to get out of the gate with a holistic solution, and you've got a lot of experts. I was also kind of thinking about Chat GPT. If you've used any of these AI tools, knowing how to prompt it today is key, and knowing when you're being told something that isn't true. You have to have a certain level of expertise to engage these things. But what you're trusting is there's a lot of knowledge built in. Well, when you look at a platform, there's a lot of knowledge built in from a lot of very smart people who focused on it for a lot of time. This came to me yesterday afternoon that a platform like that is kind of like a really well-trained LLM, okay? You're getting a lot of that knowledge out of the gate. You want to go down the learning curve, all of that on your own. For me, it's a fast start. It doesn't make every decision for you, but if you have 1,000 choices to make and you only have to focus on the 200 or 250 key ones, because someone else has already wrapped those other 750 decisions up in a platform, that's a huge advantage. you really got to weigh what are the advantages to the alternative path to give those things up. That's kind of how I've approached this. So that's how I would answer that question, is how do you speed it up? Get something that gives you a big leg up as you come out of the gate. And because there's a lot of learning that's going to go on in those first 4 or 5 years while you're running that, benefit from that other knowledge and start on a real quick start path. Because the other thing is, people want to see results early in these things. And the earlier you can deliver results, the more you're going to maintain that executive support.
And Dan, with all the focus on data-driven decision-making, why do you think data availability is still the biggest impediment?
Yeah, there's a lot of people spend a lot of time trying to crack that one, right? I think, especially in banking, the data, there's so much of it, and it comes from so many different directions and places, because you're engaging the world, right? I mean, paymenting is happening in many different ways. There's so much, in flight, and it's time sensitive. So there's just a lot of it, and it takes a lot to wrangle it into the right place. And we talk a lot about how some legacy systems can complicate that. You can work around it, but I think the biggest problem is so much of this is put together piecemeal that, IT and banking, you go back to the 70s, some of the early things that were done simplified it, and then it moved on to more complex things. But all of those different environments, people made decisions in the moment. There was no overarching data strategy. When you step back from a bank today and you think about modern systems, you would probably re-architect a lot of the data flows differently. And I think that's part of what we see happening. And that's why I think modernization is a large part of it. It's not about just being, in the cloud or what have you. It's what is the modern business and what's the right data model and data strategy for that business. And there's a lot of legacy silos that exist that as you're working your way through that, that's not easy to solve. It's in some ways you're almost like an archaeologist. If you've ever worked in a big IT environment, you start digging into certain corners of things that have run for years, nobody touches. You open some real Pandora's boxes, and there's a lot of that exists. I see Tio Naga. You probably Tiago's thinking like crazy. You've been there, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So it's really not about more and more how you can access loads of data, but it's really how you can really use the right data the moment that you need. So it's really how you can bring this data to life, per se, to apply decisions on top of it. So I've been listening customers and prospects talking about all those data lakes and warehouse. Yeah, we do have all of those big projects, but again, it's how can you really connect to the right data at the right time and use that data for the decisions that I need at scale. So it's really not just, oh yeah, I'm going to be using a whole lot of data, but what is the real value that you're providing your customers on all of the data, all of that information that you have about him? What is the real usage for you, such that you have all that info from your customer? What is going to benefit them? Because again, connecting to the overall customer experience, it is what it will drive business per se.
Thank you, Dan and Tiago, for those insights. That concludes our event today. I wanted to thank our audience for taking time out of your schedule to join us. As a reminder, you will be receiving a follow-up email from EMA with resources from today's event, so be sure to check that email out. Thank you again for joining us, and I hope we'll see you at a future EMA Research webinar.